phenomenal, legendary, and blessed morning, noon, night, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to a Mustard Seed Movement. I have a word for you. And man, this thing had me in tears and repentant to God. So I'm going to try to keep this brief. So I'm in Luke 8. I was in Luke 8. I've moved on, but I had to come back and tell this story. So there is a woman with the issue of blood, and she had been bleeding for 12 years. I'm pretty sure most of you know this story. She had been bleeding for 12 years, and she's been to doctors, nothing. She spent all her money, nothing. And at this point in time, Jesus and the disciples are coming back from the other side of the lake after Jesus had after he delivered a man from possession and sent the legion of demons into the pigs. So anyway, so there's crowds around him meeting him as they get to the other side of the lake. And as he's walking, he's like, "Who touched me?" And Peter is like, dude, like, look at the people around you. Everybody is touching you. And he in the NLT it says, "But Jesus said, someone deliberately touched me, for I felt healing power go out from me." When the woman realized that she could not stay hidden, she began to tremble and fell onto her knees in front of him. The whole crowd heard her explain why she had touched him and that she had been immediately healed. And Jesus says to her, "Daughter," he said to her, "your faith has made you well. Go in peace." This is in Luke 8:46 through 48. Now, at the same time, Jairus' daughter is facing death, and this incident with the woman with the issue of blood happens. So now, as Jesus continues to journey on to go to Jairus' daughter, um, one of one of the messengers arrived from Jairus' home to tell him that his daughter is dead. There is no use troubling the teacher now. But when Jesus heard what had happened, he said to Jairus, "Don't be afraid. Just have faith and she will be healed." Okay. Now, in the New King James Version, it says, "But when Jesus heard it, he answered him, saying, Fear not, believe only, and she shall be made whole." I'm saying all of this to say, right before all of this happening, I told you Jesus was on the other side of the lake with the disciples. There was a storm brewing on the lake. And in the NLT version, it says, "One day Jesus said to his disciples, 'Let's cross to the other side of the lake.' So they got in the boat and started. As they sailed across, Jesus settled down for a nap. But soon a fierce storm came down on the lake. The boat was filling with water, and they were in real danger. The disciples went and woke him up, shouting, 'Master, Master, we're going to drown.' When Jesus woke up, he rebuked the wind and the raging waves. Suddenly the storm stopped and all was calm. Then he asked them, 'Where is your faith?'" Okay. Where is your faith? Focus on that. Where is your faith? And as I look at the woman's story, if you remember correctly, she only touched the hem of his garment. In some versions, it says the fringe. I want you to understand what a hem looks like. So this is a towel, but this is what a hem looks like. It's usually that stitching at the end of your garment. Now, back then, Jesus, the disciples, they wore tunics and stuff like that. I want you to think about this massive crowd around Jesus as he's coming off the boat or coming from the boat, walking on land. And this woman who has the issue of blood, which back then you were considered unclean. You weren't to touch anybody. You weren't even supposed to be in the same vicinity. So on top of that, she could have been stoned to death. Okay? Okay. When I read this story, this is the only time I hear of the woman with the issue of blood that I can recall. I mean, outside of, if it's, I don't know if it's in Luke or not Luke, Mark, Matthew, or John. I can't remember. But either way, particularly this portion of the story is the only time you hear about her. Nowhere does it say that she got to see the miracles of Jesus. It doesn't say that. Now, we can understand that maybe she's heard of it because, look, everywhere he went, crowds would swarm around him because of what they heard about him and the things that he was doing, the miracles, the miraculous things that he was doing. Okay, stay with me. She touched the hem of his garment. She didn't touch his body. Because I'm just thinking, if he wore a tunic, depending on how long it was, she might have closer proximity to his feet, to his body. But she said she just needed to touch the fringe, the hem of his garment. Okay, so she's not touching his physical body. Then think about the entire crowd that she has to probably peer through to reach him. She's been bleeding for 12 years. Any woman that has a menstruation cycle, you know what you feel like just bleeding for 5 or 7 days. 12 years she was bleeding. So let's just talk about that. Then there's this swarming crowd, men and women, probably children, swarming around Jesus Christ. And she has to get through that to get to the fringe of his garment. Here was my personal revelation. All of these people around him, they know of his miracles. Some may have even seen him before. And yet, he only felt power go out from him only by her. Okay. So now, let's just say the crowd spreads out when he's yelling or he's expressing, somebody touched me. Somebody touched me. Now in NLT it says somebody deliberately touched me. But in the King James, I believe it only says that he said somebody hath touched him. He perceived that virtue has gone out from him. In the NLT, it's healing power went out from him. And I'm just thinking, all of these people around him, how come power wasn't going out from him left and right with these people touching him? And I'm thinking, did they truly believe? Or were they only there to see and hear what he can do, but they didn't truly believe? But here's a woman, bled 12 years. She's heard about this man. And all she knows is that if I just touch the fringe, the hem of his garment, piercing through people that could have stoned her to death because she's considered unclean, she would have had to touch people along the way, no? And he says to her, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. In the King James, this is what gets me. In the King James, excuse me, I got to make sure I'm looking at the right scripture. He says, daughter, be of good comfort. Thy faith has made thee whole. Go in peace. Her faith, her faith, her faith. She believed enough that if she touched the hem of his garment, it was her faith. And then, to top it off, this messenger comes to tell Jairus, which is where they were on their way to tell him that his daughter has died. And Jesus turns to him and he says, do not be afraid. In the NLT, it says, have faith and she will be healed. In the King James, it says, fear not, believe only. I'm stressing this point because I had to get on my knees after I read this to realize, God, how can I have not believed you? I know somebody on the other side of this screen, you have experienced God's miracles. I don't care how big or how small. Yes, her having the issue of blood completely stop is monumentous. Her Jairus's daughter being brought back to life. Well, Jesus says she was only sleeping. Being brought back to life is huge. But even the smaller things are just as big. God says in his word, be faithful of the few, be faithful of the little. Then he can do more. And then with the disciples, he said, where is your faith? And I believe he asked them that because they've been walking with him for how long? Seeing all these miracles and things that he has been doing. And you couldn't trust and believe that if he wasn't waking up from being tossed a bit from the storm, that you needed to worry about you drowning. You were with the man who created the heavens and the earth. You are with the man who has healed many. And I just said, my God, Lord, I am so sorry for my faith. And God says you only need the faith of a mustard seed. So do we really have the faith that requires God an open door to do miracles in our life? There is miracles happening still to this day. Don't let nobody tell you different. There are miracles happening. But where is our belief? Let that seed drop, plant deep, and grow strong in Christ.